Have you ever questioned the history you've been taught about one of the world's largest religions? Let's take a journey back in time, a journey that might challenge everything you thought you knew. The story often begins with Constantine the Great, but the version we'll explore is quite different from the one in most history books. Picture the year 325 AD at the Council of Nicea. The provided information alleges that this wasn't just a meeting of minds, but a moment that radically reshaped spiritual beliefs. It claims that the concept of reincarnation, once a common belief among early Christians, was systematically removed. The narrative suggests that thousands who held on to this belief faced severe persecution, forced to renounce their views. It was during this turbulent period, the text argues, that various religious writings from across the empire were gathered and edited, eventually forming the collection we now know as the Bible. Just a couple of years later, in 327, this version of history continues, with Jerome being commissioned to translate the scriptures into Latin. This translation, known as the Vulgate, is claimed to have altered original Hebrew names and changed the meaning of key passages, creating a new foundation for the emerging state-sanctioned religion. As the centuries passed, the text posits that more new concepts were introduced, not as divine revelations, but as strategic inventions. In 431, the veneration of the Virgin Mary is said to have been formally established. Then, in 594, the idea of purgatory, a place of purification after death, was introduced. The title of Pope as the supreme head of the Church allegedly came about in 610. The text even claims that, in 780, practices resembling the worship of older, pagan deities were integrated into Christian worship. The list of supposed inventions goes on. In 995, the Hebrew word kadosh, meaning set apart, was purportedly redefined to mean saint, creating a new hierarchy of holy figures. In 1079, the rule of celibacy for priests was imposed. Then came the Rosary in 1090, a new form of prayer. The year 1184 is marked as the beginning of the Inquisition, a dark chapter of religious persecution. The sale of indulgences, payments to reduce time in purgatory, is said to have started in 1190. The timeline continues into the second millennium. In 1215, the practice of mandatory confession to a priest was established. Just a year later, in 1216, the doctrine of transubstantiation, the belief that the bread and wine of communion literally become the body and blood of Christ, was formalized. In 1311, a specific form of baptism became standard. In 1439, the concept of purgatory was officially declared dogma. Moving closer to modern times, the text points to 1854, when the Immaculate Conception, the belief that Mary was conceived without original sin, was invented. Finally, in 1870, the doctrine of papal infallibility was declared, asserting that the Pope cannot err when speaking on matters of faith and morals. This perspective argues that these and thousands of other elements were not part of the original faith, but were created over centuries. The purpose, according to this view, was to establish a system of control, a business model built on spiritual authority. It suggests that religions, in general, were designed by people as a means of manipulation. This viewpoint concludes that we are now in an era of awakening. It observes that younger generations are becoming less religious, questioning traditions that were once taken for granted. This shift is seen not as a loss of faith, but as a step in human evolution towards greater freedom of thought. It's a move away from accepting dogma and towards personal inquiry and spiritual independence. Ultimately, this narrative leaves us with a powerful question. It encourages us to look beyond what we've been told, to question the foundations of our beliefs, and to decide for ourselves what we hold to be true. It's an invitation to start your own journey of discovery. Thanks for watching, and if this sparked your curiosity, be sure to follow for more thought-provoking content.